The Arizona Cardinals are officially in soft tank mode. Quiet tank mode, if I may. It's not loud. It's quiet. I'll discuss. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, now part of the #1 sports podcast platform. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Here's the thing. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to discuss. Still stuff to play for? There is. I'll discuss it in the third segment. The biggest needs the Cardinals have. We're going to do a quick look into the offseason of 2026, including the draft. And to kick it all off, the Cardinals are in quiet tank mode. Easy for me to say. And some may say, oh, no, they're in loud tank mode. Everybody's hurt. They're dropping everything. Nobody's coming back. They've got Paris out. They've got Marv out. They've got Rabbit and Max Melton out. I see it a different way. This has been incremental. Okay. And let's take all of the conspiracies out, like, oh, these guys are healthy, but they're hurt, so they're not playing to tank the draft stock. Let's make one thing very clear. No organization tries to lose games. They put the healthiest product out there, and sometimes if it's 50-50 and if someone should play, and if they're one of the more elite talents on the team, maybe they don't play down the stretch as much as when they do. Maybe it just happens less. That's not an original story. Players on losing teams tend to stay injured for longer. It's one of those things that exists in the ether that's not really discussed because it can't be backed by science. It can be backed by the eye test and by numbers. But it's not something that's conspiratorial like, oh, they're tanking. No. Every single one of the players in between the lines on Sunday and the coaches are trying to win every single game. They don't care about, they don't care about draft record next year. It's a byproduct. The Cardinals at this point could fall into a top 5 pick and might. They need a little help from their friends. But nobody is trying to lose games. With that said, there's a way to put your team in a situation where you have a higher chance of losing than if you played your 50-50 guys who are borderline healthy. I'm not saying fully healthy. I'm saying borderline healthy. So with Paris specifically, he's the #1 vote getter for the Pro Bowl, which is cool. It's not really a thing. Like it's great. It's great. But it just shows that he may be underrepresented with how important he is to this team. I don't think he gets enough credit. He's had an up and down year this year, but by all accounts, the dude is absolutely rock solid at left tackle. You've got Marv, who's got to heal. And from what Jonathan Gannon said, we talked about it late last week. What Jonathan Gannon said, like, he's getting better, but it seems like he's not fully healthy. He had the appendicitis. Now he's got the heel. It's like, okay. And then you look at Rabbit and Max Melton. Max Melton was kind of falling out of favor, and Rabbit has been around, by reports, he's been around practice, but he just hasn't, been activated. And then Trey Benson obviously was the big one where it looked like they were going to activate him before the 21-day window was closed, and they ended up not shutting him down for the season. That was the first indicator for me. I know it was a couple weeks ago. That was the first indicator for where, your spidey senses go up like, quiet tank. And it's just a byproduct of not pushing your star players back in action. And, it's a loud tank. They're obviously trying to lose games. No, they're not. It would be easier to stomach if that were the case. It would be easier to stomach, but it's not. So here we are. Is it going to mean anything in the long run? No. We're so far out of the realm of anything really mattering for 2025 outside of, stuff that's still to play for, which I'll discuss in the final segment. That's a mini segue. A segue on ice, because we're going to have a segment between it. But the Cardinals are slowly and methodically putting the best fully healthy product out there and not pushing for their big name guys to come back so quickly. Would Paris be playing next week if the Cardinals were still vying for the division? I'm not sure. But I feel like it would be a higher chance of that happening if the Cardinals were still competing for the playoffs and not being mathematically eliminated. So it's not an exact science. It looks different every time an organization does it or has a hint of doing it again. I'm not saying the Cardinals are purposefully not playing players who are healthy in an effort to get a higher draft pick. I'm not saying that at all because I don't think that's true. But there are different ways to position yourself where if it's a 50-50 chance somebody plays and you don't play them to preserve them and don't put them in harm's way, where injuries now going into week 16 have massive potential ramifications for the start of 2026. Massive implications. And that's not to hope for injuries. Well, yeah. Well, why is Paris Johnson Jr. more important than a practice squad? He's not. They're all human beings. Okay, so let's not do that either. But the Arizona Cardinals seem to be in a situation, and this has just evolved over the last couple weeks. There's different iterations of a season, especially with one where teams are losing significantly more games than they're winning, to where you hold dudes out towards the end of the year. It's the Anthony Davis in New Orleans effect. Players stay injured longer on bad teams. At times. And the byproduct of it would be, well, the Cardinals will get a top 5 pick. And I'll tell you what, if the biggest needs we'll talk about in the next segment, but in this draft specifically, having a pick where the Cardinals are is massive. It's massive because there are two guys. I think Dylan Moore is the kid out of Oregon who may come out. And then, the Mendoza kid out of Indiana. That's two. There's 100% better players in this draft that aren't quarterbacks. So the Cardinals will get a top pick, wherever they pick in the top 6, which is great. So that's a byproduct of this, the quiet tank mode. This is, again, not to say these guys aren't playing hard trying to win games. But when you've got a 50-50, maybe you hold out your top players. Because not only of the ramifications for 2026, if somebody were to get injured, also, what's the point is tough. What's the point is tough. I wouldn't go that far. These guys want to, earn a paycheck. When you're healthy, you play. There's just ways to massage this part of the season that allows for less leverage on the future with your top guys by not having them step between the lines on game day. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. What are the biggest needs? There's a couple. It seems like there's a lot with how things have gone, but there's not. There's a couple, though. We'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. And that's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. Like, say, going into halftime, last night, with the Steelers and the Dolphins, you're like, listen, they're going to 100% score more than, 10 or 14 points in the third and fourth quarter and over. So maybe you wanted to take the over at halftime, which ended up cashing pretty easily. You can do that at FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Cardinals with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. The link is in the description. Check it out. Starting to ramp up. This is going to be a really, really fun addition to, being an everydayer. And if you're not yet, jump on in. Weather's warm. The weather's warm. living in Arizona now is treated, even though I'm not in Arizona currently, I'm doing my West Coast, even further West Coast swing, as you can tell by the background not being the same. I don't know if people picked up on that. Biggest needs. So when you look at this and you look at what the Cardinals are dealing with moving forward, and you're looking at this roster, the crux of it, like the foundation of it, is filled with very talented, younger football players at incredibly key positions, some of whom are on the precipice of big paydays. You know, Paris Johnson Jr., Michael Wilson, I think they should extend him this offseason. He's got 1 year left on his rookie contract. Rip it up, give him an extension. Don't let him hit free agency. I think he's shown enough. You know, you've got Garrett Williams, Will Johnson, Walter Nolan. We'll talk about the safeties. Mac Wilson, I'm assuming, will be back. I don't know if they're going to Kazir White him or Mac Wilson's shown that he's a very, very good football player within this defense, and we'll see what happens with the coaches and the coordinators at the end of the season. The biggest needs for me, right tackle, right guard, left guard, in that order. Of course, you need a pass rusher. Of course, depending on what happens with James Conner, you might need a running back. Right tackle, right guard, left guard, in that order. And I could be swayed into going right tackle, left guard, right guard, depending on what Will Hernandez does. If you can bring in a powerhouse left guard, whether it be through free agency or the draft, and you have Yalta Froholt, that powerhouse, and Paris Johnson Jr. on the left side, good luck. Good luck. Good luck 3 times. So when the Cardinals are drafting in the top 6, and they've got some money to spend, even though they're going to allocate some of those funds to players to bring them back, it's got to be an offensive lineman. Do it for me, man. Do it for me. I've been screaming from the mountaintops for years to draft an offensive lineman in the first round. They did with Paris Johnson Jr. The Hollywood Brown one still messes with my head. When they traded the mid-20s pick for Hollywood Brown and didn't take center Tyler Linderbaum, who ended up going to the Ravens with that pick. That one hurts. That one hurts a lot. But Tristan Wirfs, Jedrick Wills, Mekhi Becton were in the mix, and both of those guys did not end up what Tristan Wirfs ended up as. But this team has been littered with first-round picks that should have been offensive linemen that weren't. So I think with 6 or whatever it ends up being, 5, 4, 3, I don't care. The best offensive lineman in the draft, you take him. Even if he's a left tackle, you move him to right tackle, it doesn't matter. You need the bookend to Paris, and you've got your dudes for the next 10 years. That's how you win. Pass rush. Interior defensive line. We'll see what happens with Calais. We'll see what happens with Dalvin Tomlinson. I think Dalvin's back no matter what next year. Walter Nolan's something special. Had a sack, tackle for loss, and a pass deflection this past week in the blowout loss. But Walter Nolan's a guy that's going to be a cornerstone for this defense. He needs a running mate. TBD on Darius Robinson, and you can't look back and be like, okay, this guy's a bust, this guy's a bust, this guy's a bust. They've got their slew of picks every year moving forward. So it's not just drafting guys. You could trade guys. You could trade for guys. They've got all the draft capital they're ever going to need, and they've got to implement it. But biggest needs for me, even though the offensive line over the last 3 weeks is put together borderline stellar performances, 7 sacks combined in the last 3 weeks against really good defenses. You need an offensive lineman. You need a right tackle. That's the biggest need for me. Now, the conversation about safety is going to get fascinating really quickly. Budda Baker's towards the top with missed tackles this season. Not like him. Okay? He signed the contract extension in the offseason, 100% should have done it. He had a great year last year. I find it difficult, though, in his defense, to play safety on a team who can't rush the passer. We weren't talking about Budda Baker when they were giving up 19 points a game during the first 5-6 weeks of the year. We were talking about him playing like a man possessed. This is more like, 2021, 2022, where it's like, you can't rush the passer. What's the safety supposed to do? And, he got absolutely burned. He was not in the right spot on the Nico Collins second play from scrimmage, 51-yard house call. That was on him. 4 more missed tackles this past week. I don't think that this is the rule for Budda Baker, but it's a conversation that is on ice right now. So I did this segment to remind people that you got to eat your vegetables. They've got two corners. They've got that interior defensive lineman. They've got their left tackle. They've got their receiving core kind of with Trey McBride also. They've got enough. We'll see what happens with the new offense, everything like that. Running back, maybe. Right tackle, left guard, right guard. Right tackle, right guard, left guard. Look at what the Chicago Bears have done in one offseason. Caleb Williams was running for his life the entirety of last year. You bring in three dudes, you draft one of the best offensive lines in football. It's not rocket science. It's how you win football games. You have the best offensive line. It's not an original story. It's how you win football games. Those are the biggest needs for the Cardinals moving forward. There's still stuff to play for here, okay? Let's not get Looney Tunes with this. They're 3-11. They're going to limp their way, proverbially speaking, to the finish line of the 2025 season. There's still so much to watch and so much that is tied to the future with this team. And we're going to highlight that next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It happens fast. A few subscriptions here, an impulse buy there, and suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. And Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances, because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Seeing all your spending on one dashboard makes it easy to understand where your money's going. I like how Rocket Money automatically builds budgets based on past spending. It keeps you on track without overthinking it. The bill alerts and spending notifications help you catch small things before they turn into big expenses. And having the app find good times to save each month keeps you consistent and your financial goals in line. Take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Please go to the YouTube channel. Search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. You know the drill, man. Buddy Bo Brock joining me tomorrow. Figured I'd do him a favor, give him a little pub. Former co-host, Wall and Jane of mine here on Locked On Cardinals for a couple years. There's still a lot to watch, a lot to play for. And this is a selfish segment for the 2026 me talking about this Arizona Cardinals team. Obviously, we talk ad nauseum about Trey McBride and Michael Wilson. Trey McBride, set and forget the next 10 years. He's going to be the Travis Kelce for this organization, you'd hope. Loves being here. He gets all the targets. He scores the touchdowns. He has 10 now. Like that, I called that going into the season. I was hoping it wasn't going to look like this, that this was the reason why. But Michael Wilson's another fascinating one. I wonder if we've seen enough. Where you just extend him. You give him a 3-year extension or a 2-year extension, give him $12 million a year, let him earn his cheese, and then, he's still pennies on the dollar next year. So that's for the cap-friendly bendability. He's not going to cost much next year. You give him an extension, set and forget. Don't let him hit free agency after next season. Will Johnson, Walter Nolan. How good are these guys going to be? Will Johnson's hit that rookie wall. We talked about that yesterday. He's hit that rookie wall. Overwhelmingly, though, this season, he hasn't looked lost. He's been a good young rookie corner. This isn't like oh no. No wonder he dropped. This dude's going to be good for a long time. Is he going to be all world, all pro? We don't know yet. It's still too early. Garrett Williams. Got to see the rest of the year with him. He was the best zone corner in football last year, according to Pro Football Focus, I believe. The ripple effects for this, though, can become quite stark and quite terrifying. The Cardinals traded back in the second round 2 years ago and drafted Max Melton. Cooper DeJean was available with that pick. They didn't take Cooper DeJean because he plays the same position as Garrett Williams. So, If Garrett Williams ends up not being that dude who deserves as close to a max, cornerback contract, second contract as a slot corner deserves, and Cooper DeJean continues to be all pro or close to it, that's going to be a weird conversation. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Just put it in the back of your mind and hope that it never gets woken up. But still, you want to see him the rest of the year against, you hope Drake London plays because you just want to see the DBs go up against the best. And then you've got Jamar Chase. And you would expect T. Higgins, I'm not exactly sure, where he'll be a concussion protocol in week 17. And then Puka Nacua in week 18, hoping like Devontae Adams looked like he had a pretty big hamstring injury this past week, but we'll see if he's playing in week 18, if they have anything to play for at that point, or if they've clinched the number 1 overall seed. We'll see. You want to see more from Garrett Williams. You want to see more from Will Johnson the rest of the year. This is still stuff to play for because at this point in the season, obviously you're still trying to win games this year, irrespective if people want to believe that or not. They're trying to win games. Always. You want to see how ironclad certain positions are for next season, where you don't have to use draft capital or actual capital on positions if Will Johnson and Garrett Williams are your dudes moving forward. If Walter Nolan is really going to be that next world-beating disruptor from the interior defensive line with his quick twitch nature and his strength. Paris Johnson Jr. is already that for them. So if they don't play him the rest of the year, I'll be like, okay, it's a good call, especially obviously if he's injured. We talked about that in the first segment. But when there are things, Chad Ryland, another big one. He wasn't on my list, but Chad Ryland's another big one. It's like, all right, is enough? Like, he's been fine. Okay, so I don't want to make it seem like the Cardinals have lost games because of him. There's been missed field goal in games that they've lost that have been one-score games, sure. But that's not like, oh, the Cardinals have lost 4 games because of their kicker. That's not this. He just was much more consistent last year, regardless of distance of kick in big-time moments. He's not a guy that you can just trust to be automatic this year. And it's just something that you want to watch. I wonder if they're going to start kicking more field goals down the stretch to see if this dude is going to be the guy for them moving forward, if they're going to have to look elsewhere. There's a lot of pieces, a lot of question marks. And you still want to see all these guys play to be able to see it. You want to see Cody Simon get as much run as possible. You want to see ADG get as much run as possible to see. ADG hasn't had the best year this year, especially in the last 6 weeks or so. The Cardinals defense as a whole, obviously giving up 40 points a game 3 out of the last 5 weeks, is a joke. But for the long-standing version of this team, for years and years and years to come, Walter Nolan, Will Johnson, Garrett Williams, Cody Simon, Denzel Burke, Chad Ryland, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride is a set and forget already. You want to see the interior of the offensive line, guys. Again, the offensive line has played very well the last 3 weeks, comparatively speaking, to weeks prior. So you want to see Isaiah Adams get more run. You want to see if he's going to be a good depth guy. See if Kelvin Beachum is going to run it back for another year after this season. See if Yalta gets another contract extension. He's played well this year again. See what Josh Fryer is. Is Josh Fryer a guy you can swing over to right tackle and did you get lucky and already have your right tackle for the future with his team, or somebody that can compete with a draft pick that they take 6th overall or whatever it's going to be? So what I'm trying to impart to you here is there's so much to watch still that has severe impact on the future of this team. It's not just that they're recent draft picks. It's not just that they've shown flashes mostly during the first part of the season and then in Dallas in that their last win after the bye. It's the impact that it's the impact position that these players play. Corner, interior defensive line, wide receiver, offensive line. Like, these are the most important positions in this day and age. I think if we're going to hierarchy it, Michael Wilson, and it's not because wide receiver is the most important position. It's, what do you got? I want to see him do it every week. Make it undeniable that they should extend him and he'll be wide receiver 2 alongside Marvin Trey McBride in 2026. And then it's immediately tied with Will Johnson and Walter Nolan. And then Garrett Williams at the end, because we've seen the most success from him since he's come into the league, even though he's been hampered with injuries on and off outside of last season. But Will Johnson and Walter Nolan, their 1-2 punch from the draft this year, when they've played, the majority of the time that they've played well right away in wildly key positions on defense. The spotlight is still very much on the Arizona Cardinals for the rest of the season, these last couple games. They have long-lasting effects on what the front office is going to do in free agency and the draft and allocate funds to be able to bring in other players. And you may not need to bring in players of those said positions if these young guys can continue to produce the rest of the season. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.